I asked our guest Mike Wright to pound the table for someone. Mike, who you pounded the table for?
Ooh, who am I like pounding? I'm going to pretend like you didn't ask me the question before everything started. No, the player who I've just been getting hot and bothered by over the entire process. Like, I mean, it was an immediate connection, so I'm not like breaking any news here, but I am all in on Cortland Sutton finishing easily as a top 12 wide receiver. Now that you have an actual good quarterback throwing him the ball with Russell Wilson and the massive trade, like Sutton on the field to me has proven it. I know it feels like forever ago because that's how football works, but his sophomore year, 1,100 yards, I don't remember, like 6 or so touchdowns, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that was with like Joe Flacco. Like the guy Cortland Sutton has had just terrible quarterback play his entire career, and yet he's been okay. And then you got to follow the story of, okay, well, he had the breakout, tears his ACL. So that's a wasted year where fantasy football players like trying to remember these guys after they break out and then they tear an ACL. You like, we delete it, and all of a sudden you're like, well, was he really that good? Yeah, and you're like, yeah, it was a sensational breakout campaign. And then he's not great coming back off of the ACL, which, remember, he came off of an ACL. Like we have to give these players grace of sometimes they come through. Like Cooper Kupp, when he came back, he had a monster season right off of his ACL tear. But like Allen Robinson tore his at the beginning of the year for the Jacksonville Jaguars, goes to the Bears. It's not very good. Next year, who's dominating for multiple years for the Bears? Allen Robinson, because he's a good player. I think Cortland Sutton is that. He's going to command targets. You get the bump from the unfortunate circumstance of Tim Patrick and the ACL tear, but he just looking at Russell Wilson, like since 2015, he always has a top 15 wide receiver, and that's at least one. Like multiple times, more than one top 15 wide receiver, because Russ just gets it done. The team wanted him. He's going to be unleashed. The fantasy community has begged to #let Russ cook, and Pete Carroll says no because I am the chef of that. And okay, Pete Carroll, you're gonna get what you want, right? Like he thinks that he's the mastermind of everything, and not realizing it's run. Oh crap, Russell Wilson, bail us out. Run. Oh hey Russ, can you help us out again? So good luck with Drew Lock doing that. Anyways, I get off topic but Cortland Sutton with Russell Wilson, I think is just locked and loaded to be a stud. 1,200 plus yards is in the range of outcomes, and if the touchdowns hit like they can for a gigantic red zone weapon that Cortland Sutton is, you're looking at the possibility of 10 plus touchdowns as well.
Excellent. I love it. Yeah, buy that dip. Buy that injury dip. Take advantage of Russell Wilson, the quarterback upgrade, and go get you some Cortland Sutton. Now let's get to the show. Welcome, everyone, to the most accurate podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Niles. With me is my excellent co-host, Jen Eakins. Jen, how you doing today?
I'm well. I'm excited to be here. And apparently it's even though we're not doing the NFC West today, it's Bronco Day apparently because I live here in Denver, but I did some local Denver radio today, talking a little Cortland Sutton. There was a huge training camp blow up play today from Cortland Sutton that kind of made its way around. Little training camp hype, and then we got Mike coming in with some Cortland Sutton, so I'm ready.
We'll just dub today Cortland Sutton Day. I think
August 8th has become Cortland Sutton Day. Brandon, what's up with you? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited that it's Cortland Sutton Day. I didn't get you anything, Jen. I feel bad, but outside of that,
put it on your tab, dude.
I do owe a lot. Thank you. You got me this hat. I appreciate it. So I do owe you at this point. This week, we're psyched to be joined by Mike Wright from the fantasyfootballers.com. You can listen to him on the flagship Fantasy Footballers podcast, the Spitballers podcast. Can and should also follow him on Twitter at FFHitman. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. Working a little overtime here, and I'm happy for y'all that with a title like the most accurate podcast, it's finally true. You finally did it. You brought me on the pod, so now you can say the most accurate podcast.
Having
Bolstered
you on was
by
all
Mike.
about credibility. Yeah, it was all about credibility. It was all about we've lost this credibility. We need Mike Wright to come out and do this.
And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to pick up the pieces and put the puzzle back together.
We appreciate you. We're gonna talk NFC West, not the AFC West. Although I can't guarantee on Cortland Sutton Day we won't bring up Cortland Sutton again. But the NFC West, we're gonna do our division preview today with Mike. But before we get into that, Mike, I loved your mock draft episode you did last week. It was really fun, and I saw that you took Justin Jefferson with the 4th pick. First wide receiver off the board. Just wondering, it seems like there's that trio of receivers going in the first round. Why do you like Justin Jefferson over Cooper Kupp and over Jamar Chase?
I mean, it's just youth of Justin Jefferson. I don't think that we've seen the best of him, and what we've seen of him already is a Hall of Fame trajectory. Like, I mean, you got to be careful throwing that around for a player who's been in the league for 2 years, but like, the dude is an absolute monster, gets it done. And, comparing him to, like, Jamar Chase, like, Chase is also tremendous. So this is not I'm taking away from Jamar Chase. It's just I prefer Justin Jefferson. Between the two guys, who's more likely to get 100-plus receptions? And to me, that is easily Justin Jefferson, just the way that they are used, the way that Kirk Cousins looks for him. You have the up-tempo, a more pass-friendly offense that is rumored to be coming in here for the Minnesota Vikings, which I buy it because you had, like, Zimmer is about as old school and high T as you can get when it comes to running an offense, and now they're going to unleash Justin Jefferson. And for all of the crap that Kirk Cousins gets, which it's fun. Like, we can all be honest. Kirk Cousins is one of those guys where it's an easy target. It's fun to make some jokes about Kirk Cousins and all of his catastrophe meltdowns in prime time that you like that. Like, it's a good time. But at the same time, he's actually good. Like he is actually a good quarterback. He is an above average starter. I'm not saying he is elite, but look at his downfield metrics. Like, look at his numbers in Washington when it was like, okay, Kirk Cousins, go and throw the ball, and you have Deshaun Jackson. Like, the dude is pushing 5,000 yards. Like, he had monster seasons when the offense was allowed to be unleashed through his passing arm, and with him and Thielen. Anyway, but Justin Jefferson, just the target share, the amount of targets he will actually get, not just target share, but he's so more likely to hit that 100-plus reception, get that half point or that full point PPR bonus, where Jamar Chase will dominate. He'll have the yardage, but he'll probably be in like the 80s, maybe the low 90s. But for Jefferson, I think that if he leads the league in receptions and yardage this year, it would not surprise me. And so then it comes down to, okay, well, what do you believe in Cooper Kupp? Well, Cooper Kupp is, again, this is not taking it away from anything from Cooper Kupp. It's just I'm going to bet on the third year of a young and emerging player. And, sure, there's some of that is like what Cooper Kupp did was historical last year. You have, and how often do you have a career year? Not every year.
It's called a career year.
And I know that's like a silly reason to like not bet on someone, but it's just like players don't repeat, man. It's just part of the ebbs and the flows of football. So I like Jefferson just a fraction more for a couple of small reasons. It's really hard when you're nitpicking between those two guys, between Kupp and Jefferson for me, but I'll take the youth and the upside.
I like it. Jefferson, number 2 in our rankings. He has leapfrogged Cooper Kupp on Underdog right now. As far as ADP,
You're welcome, America.
That's right. It's all Mike. It's the mock draft episode from last week.
I'm glad we can admit that here. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Jefferson going, I think he's a 3.6 ADP, and Cooper is 3.8 right now. So it's super tight. Leapfrogged him there. It'll cost you the 3rd or 4th pick in drafts. I haven't seen him drop lower than the 5th. Personally, Jen, I know you're like me. You're drafting a ton of underdog teams right now. In fact, we're in a puppy 3 draft together, which is a lot of fun. I'm trying not to snipe you, so hopefully that's working well. Jefferson was gone before we got a chance to pick in that one, but when you're picking top 4, are you looking at wide receiver? And if so, is Jefferson the guy?
Well, yes and no. Jefferson is the guy if I'm looking at receiver. I like to mix it up. Like you said, I am drafting a lot of a lot on Underdog. And one thing that's great about Underdog, you can actually look at your exposure, your portfolio as you go along, especially if you're in slow draft. You can kind of contemplate like, okay, I've got enough of this guy. So I feel like in the top 4, I certainly have my share of Jonathan Taylor. I certainly have my share of Christian McCaffrey. But like our friend Mike here, I go with Jefferson as the wide receiver in that spot if I can get him. I've seen him go, second. I've seen him go. I think I've even seen him go first, actually. So sometimes you can't even get him. But yeah, I mean, for many of the same reasons that Mike mentioned, the youth, and I kind of end up going that route. I feel like. I don't know. We'll get into it later when we get into the Rams. With Stafford, this bad tendonitis, it's starting to make me a little nervous there. So I think that's another thing that kind of gives Jefferson the edge.
Yeah, staring down the gun barrel of John Wolford. That's a rough thing to bank on. Also, it's a cheap stack if you're stacking in an Underdog, which is a great strategy when you're doing those best ball lineups. Kirk Cousins costs you a song. And as Mike said, he's not a bad quarterback, despite what people try to tell you a lot. Mike, when you do those best ball or really any format, but especially the best ball formats, when you go Jefferson first, are you committing then to kind of a quote unquote 0 running back strategy, or are you able to kind of balance out in the 2nd and 3rd rounds?
So I'm not opposed to it. I've done some mocks and some Underdog where I do that, where just smash wide receiver for the first 4 or 5 rounds or whatever. But I don't lock that in because, like, in the second, when you go Kupp or Jefferson, like I've had drafts where Javonte Williams comes back to me, and it's okay. Well, this is exciting. We're back to the AFC West, everybody.
It is Cortland Sutton Day, so
I have taken over the NFC West podcast. I don't want to talk about them, but like Javonte's super exciting. Benjamin Albright kind of pouring some cold water all over all of us, talking about the split being 55-45. But just a reminder to people, it's pretty rare for any running backs in the league to see that like 65% of the snaps. Like good running backs, they get it done with the 55% of the opportunity. And I think that Javonte is one of those guys with Russ who could. And then over the course of the offseason, you'd be getting like Alvin Kamara's in the 3rd round. Like, I get it. We're afraid of a possible suspension. I am playing that. I think that that's all going to get pushed. Well, like the suspension, I think comes next year, if at all. I mean that's we don't know what the NFL is going to do with that situation. So, and I'm in on Zeke still. Like, I am not. It's Tony Pollard people. Just take it easy. Take it easy. I'm not saying Tony Pollard's a bad player, but I think that Zeke over the beginning of the year was fantastic. And then was it the LCL or PCL? One of the ligaments. I don't know. Hashtag not a doctor. But he hurt his knee and he played through an injury for the rest of the year, and his numbers went down. I mean, shocker when you have a bum ligament in one of your legs. But through the first few games before that happened, he was on track to dominate yet again. And it's just Jerry Jones in particular, like he breaks a lot of things for football because like, it just like if this were a different team, honestly, if this were not the Cowboys and it's just some other team, and it's Zeke drops into the dead zone, and we have this backup court or running back who we've all been so excited about is just electric. We cite the stats of every time Tony Pollard touches the ball, he averages 35 yards or just whatever. Like, we have the stats to back up that Tony Pollard is good. Okay, maybe then I'm more interested in the backup running back. But Jerry Jones runs the Cowboys, and that dude loves Ezekiel Elliott. They got rid of Amari Cooper over Ezekiel Elliott. Like, one of those dudes had to go because the contracts are so bad. They chose Amari Cooper, and they shipped him off for like a couple Pokemon cards to the Cleveland Browns here, and not even like rares, just commons that you can pull out of any pack. So I'm still into Zeke, and he's dropping. So that's a long-winded way of saying, like, there's these other running backs who are dropping into the second, third, and fourth round who I'm still very interested in. However, when the right wide receivers drop to me, like Michael Pittman, I'm super into Mike Williams, these guys who just can give me huge weeks, then I'll build a zero running back team. It doesn't bother me at all to go that direction.
I like it. And, Javonte, I share your optimism about Javonte. You could do that Denver stack. You can go Jefferson, then Javonte, and then take Cortland Sutton on
Denver
Cortland
super
Sutton
stack.
Day.
Yeah, baby.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Third round. There you go. Get you some rust later on. I like it. You talk about those big play receivers, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman. I agree. Those big numbers. I love those guys. Jefferson, Chase, whichever one you want to choose, whichever one you like. You get those spike weeks in tournament format. I was able to kind of stay in the money on with the Best Ball Mania last year, going after those spike weeks with receivers. So I've been doing that with a healthy percentage of my Best Ball Mania stuff, that tournament where there's millions of dollars being given out in prizes, which is really awesome. Jefferson being drafted as in the wide receiver 1 on Underdog right now. Having a blast drafting best ball fantasy lineups. If you haven't already, head to 4for4.com/underdog. Find out how you can get a free 4for4 Pro or DFS subscription and a deposit bonus match with a new Underdog account. So let's go to our main topic today, NFC West Division Fantasy Preview. I like to let Jen start because Jen likes to pick a good team to start with, and I never know where to go. So, Jen, where should we start in our NFC West?
Well, let's start with the Rams because we started to talk about him, and then I backed off a little bit. We talked a little bit about Cooper Kupp. He was the wide receiver 1, both overall fantasy points and half fantasy points per game last year. We kind of touched on the fact that I don't think that's going to happen again. Career year. So let's move on from him and go to A-Rob because I feel like he's kind of a polarizing guy this season. I feel like a lot of people were off of him. All of a sudden, people are now on him again, which I don't really understand because nothing really happened other than his quarterback having tendonitis. So A-Rob, look, all of a sudden that comes out and all of a sudden everyone's on A-Rob again. Like you'd think it would go the other direction, but somehow it hasn't. Listen,
I think people forgot he existed, and then they were like, "Oh yeah."
Listen, I've always been an Allen Robinson gal. This is the thing. He was QB proof for a long time, right? He had 3,000 yard seasons with Blake Bortles, Trubisky, like the combination of Trubisky and Foles. He was fantastically quarterback proof. Last year was a mess, but it was a mess the whole Bears. We can't blame him for that. I don't think anybody does. I think the recency bias might still be there a little bit, but I think people should realize that he really had nothing to do with what happened. It was just the offense as a whole was a complete disaster. So now he's in LA, right? Where he's seemingly sliding into where Robert Woods was. How do we feel about him, Mike? Are you in on A-Rob at his ADP? Are you not?
So I've been rising. First, I need to, because this is what I do when I come on podcasts. I want to have a good time. I love the professionals. Brandon, incredible segue over, throwing it to Jen. Like, what team are we going to start with? Oh, we just have graphics ready for the team that Jen wants to talk about. So, fantastic. And the thing that has happened with Allen Robinson is we always have to be careful with the training camp videos because they mess with our brains. And, like, people listening at home, I'm not saying, I'm not being high and mighty and saying, you are weak. The listener, like, no, us. Our job is to break down fantasy football, and we see Robinson start dominating in camp. We go, oh yeah, I remember that guy, and and it's just, it was a full. We had to go through all the stages of grief with Allen Robinson. I had him last year in my league of record. Like, and this is a league where you can trade picks. So I was coming off a championship. To get that championship, I had to unload some of my futures. I still had my first round pick, but not a lot after that. Allen Robinson magically fell to me at the 112 in the keeper league, and I was like, holy crap, here we go, Allen Robinson. And then it just like, it tanked my season. Like, it tanked my season because I just kept believing, no, Allen Robinson, he's going to show up. He's going to show up. And he just never did. Meanwhile, the Bears were a mess. Jen is right. The Bears were a disaster. Darnell Mooney still put up over 1,000 yards. I mean,
yeah.
So it was really frustrating that, and you got to go through, whatever, all this anger, acceptance, whatever, all the stages of grief. We had to just go through all of that, and we've had to speed up that process because of the training camp reports, and then it's just realizing the real situation that he is in. I mean, Van Jefferson's sudden departure did he have? I think he had to get surgery. I don't recall exactly what happened, but Van Jefferson, they're hoping he's back for week 1.
I have a lot of Van Jefferson already stashed in my. I'm very unhappy about that.
Yes, and I love Van as well, and he was kind of my last remaining shield of defending me from the Allen Robinson hype. And they're like, well, he may not be ready week 1. It's okay. Well, Allen Robinson is walking into a situation with the best quarterback of his career, which we've said that statement now 4 straight years in a row, but it's actually true this year because it's Super Bowl winning Matthew Stafford. And he's walking. Robert Woods is gone, and Robert Woods, up until the ACL injury, was like a top 20 guy. It was a slow start, but Woods got it going again. And that target share is what Allen Robinson is walking into. Let's be honest. What is Robinson getting? Minimum 22, 23% of those targets? And from Stafford and the Rams, those are numbers that we really need to be interested in. We have to get over what Allen Robinson did to us last year. If we were all playing for that Matt Nagy-led Chicago Bears, we would probably phone in some routes here and there too, because Matt Nagy sucks. That dude is the worst. And he destroyed Allen Robinson and whatever. Nagy sucks. But anyway, so Allen Robinson is just walking into such a prime situation of a quarterback within the range of outcomes is 35-plus touchdowns, easily over 4,000 passing yards, and 20+% of those targets. It's just, so thank you for changing the hashtag Nagy sucks. Yes. The situation is so good. And then on top of that, you get all the external peripherals of Sean McVay, where this is all coming out now of McVay desired Allen Robinson, and they went hard in the paint after Allen Robinson of I don't think we can afford this guy. And McVay's I don't care, man. We're going to figure this out. And he's getting on the phone with Robinson, selling him his role in the offense. And that was, Robinson was strongly considering other offers. Imagine this. A wide receiver is considering anyone else, and the Super Bowl winners are calling you up saying, hey, we need you to be our wide receiver too. And Robinson's you're going to have to talk me into this. And the way they talked him into it was saying, you're going to be a huge part of this offense. You're going to put up numbers. You have a chance to win again. So for all of those reasons, I am back in on Allen Robinson. The ADP hype train is picking up steam as we all keep talking about it. So we might get into a dangerous level where just playing fantasy football in the ADP, I'm out. But for now, where he is, I am very, and especially in home leagues, home leagues, the recency bias will be real.
Yeah.
That gets lost on us, I think, a little bit, as when we talk about fantasy football on these podcasts and everything, is we're so in the trenches of underdog, and we're doing drafts in freaking May and earlier, and we're because we're degenerates. And when you're doing that, you are drafting with people who are sharp and 100% plugged in. Meanwhile, our biggest audience is people in home leagues and people in office leagues. So in those leagues, Allen Robinson is going to be a huge value.
No, I totally agree. I just did a best ball. It wasn't on Underdog, but I did a best ball on another platform with the
Don't
people.
tell us where. Don't.
I'm not. No.
Nameless.
But with the people in my home league, and it was incredible. I mean, I was just sitting there in awe of the picks and what was happening. And we get in this bubble and you forget. And then here I am drafting with these people, and I was like, oh my! I mean, it was amazing. First of all, the value was amazing. Russell Wilson was like a second rounder. I mean, it was fantastic. I was just like, what is happening here? And I was just scooping it all up. Every guy, I was like, oh, I'll take him. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's crazy. And I think you're right, true about A-Rob. I think he will fall in those drafts because I think people will be like, oh no, he sucked last year. I'm out. Brandon,
I don't know about you. A-Rob, so 4th round ADP on Underdog right now. He's the guy who I see the most variation in all the drafts. Like everywhere I'm at and I draft him, I feel like I never know when he's coming off the board. I've seen him go in the late 2nd, and I've gotten him in the 6th. I feel like nobody knows where to draft him. And so I think you're right, Mike. I think when home leagues come around, and I'm looking forward to those, he's going to be someone I'm targeting because I think I'm going to get him 2 rounds later than I think he should go.
For sure. Let's move on to the ground game there, Brandon. Let's start with you. Akers, Henderson, other. Are you back in on Akers with that knee?
Kyron. Let's talk about Kyron Williams.
That was
I'm sorry.
That was the other. Well, that was the other.
Yeah.
Listen, last year, Akers. It just depends. I mean, last year, Sony Michel was kind of the crazy dark horse that came in at the end and got people probably won people some leagues. Akers, I don't know. I unfortunately I was having laggy issues and I closed my Underdog ADP tab, and I didn't write it down. So I don't know where Akers is right now. Is he what, 3rd, 4th? I'm not really sure, but are you buying him, Brandon, where he is, or are you waiting for the Henderson Williams later on?
So Brandon, you were killing me with your hashtags, bro.
We keep waiting for Darrell Henderson to happen, right? And I know he's flirted. You know what I mean?
Happened last year.
He happened last year, Brandon. He did.
Good games. It's some good games, but he's not.
My goodness!
Look,
for his price tag, he happened last year.
For his price tag, yeah. I'm just saying we have large expectations for Darrell Henderson, and it doesn't seem like when they have a healthy running back room, they have any desire to give him like a legitimate workload. Cam Akers came back on like half a leg and they gave him a full workload. So I think this is Cam Akers' backfield. And I think that, and I know I'm a little out on a limb with that. I know most people think it's going to be a little bit more of a timeshare. Sean McVay has done timeshare stuff in the past, but I think he likes Cam Akers. And I think that now that he'll be much further removed from that injury, I think he's going to be more effective. I'm just really not too concerned about Akers as far as a workload perspective. Now, will he get hurt again? Does he have the explosiveness? Those are all worth being considered. And I don't think that Akers in the late 4th, early 5th round is that bad of a deal. I think you're starting to get into that running back dead zone. I think he's going to be very solid as long as he stays healthy, right? Obviously, Henderson is a better deal, but I'm just tired of expecting Henderson to become somebody really solid. Like if I'm banking on a backup running back, which is what I'm calling Darrell Henderson, if I'm banking on that, I'd rather take Deontay Foreman late and just assume, or Khalil Herbert, and just assume those guys are going to take over and be just as effective if they get a full workload because the starter got hurt.
It's not like Henderson's been around for like 12 years. I mean,
at least 12
years. You act
years.
Like we've been waiting for
like 20 years, right?
I mean,
he's like 20 years. He's every year we talk about Darrell Henderson.
Okay, sure. Mike, do you have an opinion? Obviously, you are whispering for Williams. Is he your last?
I like to be the wild card and put the penny down on the railroad tracks and try and derail the conversation. But Gerald, I just want to. For me and Jen here, through week 12, before he got hurt, Darrell Henderson was the running back 12. Like he was a running back 1.
RB1, baby.
For the majority of the season. That happened. He had a happening and not a M. Night Shyamalan happening. He had a good one. So that's just where we'll start. But having said pumped up the tires here for Darrell Henderson, with McVay talking about the I have 2 starting running backs, he's just never done that. Like historically, it's always been one guy, which to the credit of McVay, for most of his years, he had Todd Gurley as the running back. And yes, if you have a talent of Todd Gurley's level, even as he's dealing with knee problems and kind of fading away, he's your guy. I totally get that. But, I mean, last year when it was supposed to be Akers, and then you have the really unfortunate Achilles tear, it's Henderson. And Henderson is the dude through 12 weeks. And then it's Sony Michel is the dude for multiple weeks. And I mean, Jen is 100% correct. Like,
he was good.
In my Dynasty League, I share a team with my co-host Jason. We lost Derrick Henry, and Sony Michel was the hero that we did not deserve. And it went from our bench of this useless player of all of a sudden, holy crap, Sony Michel is just taking all the work here for the Rams. So while he's saying that, it's still very difficult for me to buy in that he's going to do anything different. Once like whistles are being blown and dudes are getting smashed in the face, I feel like he'll revert to being Sean McVay, which is I have my one running back system. Having said that, you at least have to pay attention to what McVay is saying, and where Henderson is a forgotten man in drafts. And if he is going to be a 35-40% snap player with the upside of should Akers not be ready to go, which he was not ready to go clearly when he came back for the playoffs, like he represents a value in the draft. So you at least have to pay attention. Having said all of that, let's all remember, like, yes, I know that Kyron Williams is our favorite draft player, or draft Twitter likes to just, throw the poop at him because he kind of deserves it for being so slow. I mean, that was terrible. Kyron, like we all trusted you, Kyron, and you let us all down. But anyways, just go back, like before Williams got injured, there was those whispers building that Kyron Williams is going to replace or supplant Darrell Henderson as the backup running back. So this whole running back committee is just so in flux right now. Things will shake out through the coming weeks. But the way it goes right now, with the information I have right now, I will take Akers at his ADP because I think he'll get all the work. But if you want the arbitrage, just in case McVay's not being a big fat liar, then Henderson's draft value is perfectly fine.
All right. That works for me. Before we move on to the next team, we have to talk about the non-friend of the show, Tyler Higbee. we are not Tyler Higbee fans in this room, but we do need to talk about him real quick. He's super cheap. I was doing research for another article. I noticed he was number 1 in snaps last year in tight ends. He was on the field for 92% of the snaps. He led all tight ends. He's always out there. He's super cheap. I mean, I guess, I know how you feel, Brandon, about Higbee. So I'll ask Mike, are you in on Higbee? Do you skip that whole tier? Like, I don't know what your tight end philosophy is, but
that's going to be a no for me, dog.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move
awesome.
Let's move on to the next team since we're kind of
it would be shocking at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like you had the entire year to the opportunity was massive for Higbee last year, and it didn't happen.
It's tough to hit that draft button for him. It is.
Yeah.
I want to talk Arizona. Let's shift to Arizona. I have my own opinions about Kyler Murray, right? Kyler Murray, it's been a weird offseason for Kyler Murray. Let's just say that. Going into his career, there were concerns. There were 3 major concerns about Kyler Murray, right? The first was his size and can he hold up? And he's now coming off an injury-plagued season. He played, but he did not look 100% over the second half of the season. Number 2 was, does he love football, right? And we now have information about a contract where there was basically a homework clause. And we can make a big deal about that or not, but it is concerning at least that Arizona decided that was necessary. And number 3, his favorite movie is Gatsby, which is, there's nothing wrong with Gatsby, right? But on draft night...
You're breaking news to me. The Great Gatsby?
Boy.
Yeah, the Gatsby, the Leonardo DiCaprio... not the Robert Redford, the Leonardo DiCaprio, Baz Luhrmann. Look, I like Baz Luhrmann. I like Leo. That movie's fine. But they asked him what his favorite movie was. No hesitation.
Brandon cannot get past this. He brings it up at least once a month on the podcast.
This is a massive red flag for me. And for it to be your favorite movie it's an interesting choice.
I'm having to rethink some things right now. This is a lot of information for me to process.
Those were the three concerns we had. And now 3 years going in, they're all coming to fruition. I don't know what his take is on Elvis, which is also a Baz Luhrmann film, but I'm curious to find out. Mike, how are you approaching Kyler Murray in this draft? Because you have to pay for him. He's in that 5th round zone. He's in that territory where you have to pay up to get a quarterback. He's going ahead of guys like Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott. So it's a lot to go after Kyler Murray. Where are you approaching him this year, Mike?
So it's difficult, but you go back to the beginning of the year and up till that Green Bay game, which was an absolute catastrophe on the Thursday night for the entire world to see. The Cardinals were 7-0. Kyler Murray was the leader in the NFL to be the MVP of the league. He was on track to be easily a top 3 fantasy football quarterback. And then Cliff Kingsbury got him hurt and he got DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray hurt in the exact same game. They lose that game and everything spirals out of control. But the thing to remember is, through those first 7 games, Kyler Murray was dominating. Like he was not just good, he was fantastic. But now you have DeAndre Hopkins is gone for 6 games, and as much like I like Hollywood. Look, dude, I got the AZ hat on. I'm a diehard Arizona Cardinals fan, so I'm trying to be realistic about this. I like Hollywood Brown. I was very excited when they made the trade on draft night. At least, especially considering that like all the wide receivers that I wanted in the first round, they were gone by the time Arizona was up. So I thought it was a great move to bring in Hollywood Brown. I thought it was disgusting to pay Zach Ertz that amount of money because that dude is washed and he's going to be so good for fantasy football for 6 weeks, and it's terrible, and I hate it. I hate every ounce of that. But like Kyler, it might be a slow start. So draft wise, I'm not really into Kyler specifically because of the DeAndre Hopkins suspension. It's not an injury. Hopkins is gone 6 weeks. Book it. Like there's no amount of wishes that we can throw on the stars that hopes that DeAndre Hopkins he's gone. He's gone for 6 weeks. And even though, Hopkins was getting used weird and like it was the lowest yardage of his career, he was still catching like 1.5 touchdowns a game. It was absolutely outrageous. So without his true number one weapon, I think it's going to be a slow start. So Kyler Murray is one of those players to me that I'm going to let someone else draft him high, and then around week 4, I'm going to check in on that team. And how's your early round quarterback going? You're probably missing out on some wide receiver or running back depth because you took an early quarterback who is not returning on that draft day value, and you're getting frustrated. So second half of the year, I'm in on Kyler, but draft day, the ADP, I can't get with it.
I like that. A future trade target. I like that approach to Kyler. Jen, if you have anything on Kyler Murray, feel free. I feel like Mike hit that pretty good.
Yeah.
James Conner, we talked about James Conner. We like James Conner. When he's healthy,
Good.
He's super productive. Yeah, I'm a big James Conner. I have a lot of James Conner. I have some Arizona like Conner Hollywood stacks going on with a lot of my best ball lineups over at Underdog. Jennifer, do you like James Conner? I know, Jennifer, I went all 4.
I don't think you've ever called me.
I don't think I've ever called you Jennifer. I don't know where that went.
No. It is my name.
Jennifer Eakins, do you like James Conner?
That's right. On Cortland Sutton Day, we go formal. That's the way it goes. We go formal. Connor, is he too expensive? Because late second, early third is what it'll cost you for Connor, which means he's your top running back or your number 2 running back. Is that the right price for him, Jen?
I think he's a smidge pricey. I have seen him fall a little bit, and I will take him there. I don't seem to end up with Connor for some reason, just based on kind of where I'm drafting. If I kind of go with the anchor RB / hero RB, whatever you want to call, if I end up taking a McCaffrey or a Taylor or Austin Eckler or whatever, then I'll usually just hammer wide receiver for a while and miss Connor there. So I just don't really end up taking him. But in redraft, which we're getting into that season, and that's a whole different animal. I think he will probably fall a little bit there, and I think I would take him because like we say, the whole cliche, if healthy, he's phenomenal. So hopefully he stays that way.
Yeah, Mike, are you concerned at all about pass catching work? Like any of the young guys that they've brought in, that there's Ingram is there, and they've still got Benjamin running around. They brought in Darrell Williams. Are you concerned about pass catching work at all with James Conner?
Currently, no. I've been monitoring the camp battles a lot, and the beat guys and gals, they're not exactly sure yet. It sounds like it could be Eno. Like we'll prepare Eno, and which draft Twitter is certainly rejoicing because they have loved Eno Benjamin.
They've been talking to him, yeah.
They've loved him for multiple years, and the guy has one run. Like, granted, that run was awesome. He ran through somebody. It was super cool.
He ran through somebody.
But here's the thing. They lost Chase Edmonds, right? And James Conner has a huge history of injury, a huge history of, like, if he gets overworked, his body starts to break down. Eno Benjamin is there, and Cliff and the Arizona Cardinals decide not to use Eno Benjamin at all. Like, there was this huge gap in opportunity that Eno Benjamin desperately needed to fill for this team while Chase was out, and he did not.
He did not.
And on top of that, like, James Conner as a runner last year was fine-ish. Like, I think he was sub 4 a carry. It's not the perfect metric. I get it. But he was under 4. And we all know that 4.0 that's average. That's the baseline. I need my running back over that. Meanwhile, in the passing game, James Conner was fantastic. So why would the Cardinals give somebody else that opportunity when James Conner was so good at it? And then what you put on top of that, James Conner had the second most carries inside the 5 in the NFL, like behind Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor had 29 carries inside the 5 that turned into 12 touchdowns. James Conner had 19 carries that turned into 10 because Cliff Kingsbury's favorite play, if he could call one play for the rest of his life, it is goal line, run it up the middle. It is the most bizarre situation because, like, I've watched this for years now with the Cardinals, and they forced it with Kenyon Drake, and then it turned into James Conner. Like, Conner is that guy. Conner is the goal line guy, and thank goodness Rodney Hudson, the center, we didn't know if he was coming back, but he's coming back, and he's not the old Rodney Hudson, but he still can get it done. I mean, like I said, 19 carries turned into 10 touchdowns inside the 5. Those carries are going to James Conner, and he's going to get receiving work. So I think that the risk is built into the ADP, and the fact that you can sometimes draft a player who can, like, when things go right for him, easily finishes as a top 10 running back in my projections. Going in the 3rd round is ludicrous value. So yes, I'm in on James Conner. I'm not blind to the risk. Like, it's not a perfect draft pick, but dude, like, come on. Every running back is at risk. Like, that's just the way it is. Conner held up last year. If he holds up this year, that 3rd round pick is going to be like the greatest pick of your draft.
I have some Jefferson, Javonte Williams, James Conner builds, and I'm very excited about those. I'm
don't hate
with
that.
you.
I don't hate that at all.
I'm with both of you. I'm glad that we're a James Conner friendly pod. It's
Let's
nice because there's a lot of hate out there. So I like that we're a Conner friendly pod. Risks all over the wide receiver. We talked about Hollywood Brown. We talked about Hopkins a little bit. We know the 6-game suspension. Mike, I want to get your take as a Cardinals fan. Like, are you excited about Rondale Moore? Both kind of as a player and as a fantasy option. Like, he's a late dart throw. I'm just curious what you think about him. He had like 2 weeks of amazing, this is going to be the next thing, and then disappeared the rest of the year.
Yeah. Going back to the draft selection in the 2nd round, ecstatic. It was like, I can't believe that they actually got this right in Arizona, because I'm not a big fan of Steve Keim and our management. I think he's bad at his job. But Rondale Moore was like, the guy broke out as a like a true freshman and was putting up monster numbers. And then he got bad luck with injuries. And you're like, this is sensational. His athletic profile is ridiculous. Let's see what he can do. And then you have Cliff Kingsbury come in and just ruins everything. With the uses, I mean, the targets per route run, which like I'm super happy that this is catching on. We're like, yeah, y'all talk targets per route run. I'm sure you do because it's like more and more people are talking about it. It's great, man. It's like targets. I think we all agree targets are you got to earn your targets, and like it's a skill to get open, and the quarterback likes you. So when he was on the field, clearly Kyler Murray liked what was going on because he was targeting him. Now, unfortunately, that didn't pan out, but you have a massive opportunity. We already talked about Hopkins is gone 6 games. A second-round, ultra-athletic wide receiver here in his second year, which that's like second year is the new third year. You know, that's when the guys break out. So, yes, I think it's extremely interesting to draft Rondale in the late rounds. And the nice thing about redraft is 2 weeks go by, it doesn't pan out. No harm, no foul. You just move on. Grab someone off the waiver wire. But there are not a ton of players in that range that could explode. And Rondale Moore is a player who could truly explode and be a top 24 wide receiver.
Also, AJ Green is at least 76.
No. I'm contractually not allowed to talk about AJ Green because it makes me angry.
I'm just saying
I love AJ Green. Yeah. I mean, it's total UGA bias. Like I've been AJ.
I'm just saying he's like 76 years old though. So like it's not like
so am I, Brandon. So am I. I love AJ Green, but it's a college thing for me. I've been watching him for like my entire life.
Did you watch him last year? Because I've never seen a wide receiver so uninterested in trying to catch a football.
I know. You know what? Speaking of last year, my comments on the Rondale Moore thing, I definitely have PTSD, recency bias. Like I had him everywhere last year. We used to joke around. The Christian Kirk All-Stars was kind of our last year with Arizona. It was just a disaster. Anyone you had did not pan out. So yeah, I have to say though, you kind of talked me a little bit maybe into Rondale Moore. I think I have zero shares at the moment out of like 50 something drafts. So
just get a couple. Just get a few.
I think I'm going to. I'm glad you came on the pod. I think I'm gonna sprinkle him in a little bit. All right, let's move on to the 49ers because we are definitely going over time here.
That'll happen when I guessed.
Yeah, well, usually our other co-host Chris usually takes care of that, but he's not here right now, so I guess you're sliding in very nicely for that. All right, so 49ers, Trey Lance. I mean, I assume is creeping up a little bit, right? Right now he's at QB 7 on Underdog, a 7th rounder.
Wait, he's up to 7 now?
Yeah, he is QB 7 as of this morning. Which is crazy because you could get him. I mean, super, super cheap a while ago. I don't know.
Because Jimmy Garoppolo's still on the team.
But, so here he is, there. He is the starter. He has been declared the starter. Jimmy G will probably not be there. I don't know. Who knows if he'll be there or not? It really doesn't matter because Trey Lance is the guy. We have a very small sample size of Trey Lance from last year. It sounds like, Mike, are you in on him at QB 7? Were you happy that he's that high, or were you happy that others are drafting him that high so you don't have to?
No, I'm happy people are getting on board because I've had to spend the whole offseason dealing with the Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the team people. I'm like, they drafted him 3rd overall. I get it. Jimmy Garoppolo beat him out in camp as a rookie. That's fine. And then but remember, Trey Lance, like he hurt his fingy, and like that's a funny injury to have. But you're a quarterback, your finger's pretty important. Ask Russell Wilson about that.
Yeah.
But the floor of the rushing is sensational. We know that quarterbacks that average basically over 8 rushing attempts a year, those guys finish as top 6 quarterbacks. And I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think it was like 24 attempts in his 2 starts. And like people will look at the fantasy finish of last year and not remember the true story of like what happened. Like Trey Lance was a great streamer when he came in. The game against Arizona, you had the fourth down goal line call where he got stonewalled right on the goal line. Like if he gets in the end zone right there, his finish that week is sensational. Then you go to his next start, he had a rushing touchdown. It got called back on holding. And if that hold doesn't happen, he is like top 3 in that particular week. So I'm all in like on Trey Lance, and it's like, is Trey Lance a good NFL quarterback? I don't know. Like if I'm not a professional scout, I did not like Trey Lance coming into the draft process. I will readily admit that, because he went to a small school, essentially had 1 year of being a starter. But you know who thought he was good? Kyle Shanahan, who has taken the 49ers to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they were essentially one interception drop away from returning to the Super Bowl this past year. Like, Shanahan knows what he's doing, so I'm going to trust Kyle Shanahan. And then you look at Warren Sharp, like, enlightened me to this. I think it was in his book of like, you go to look at the next gen stat of expected completion percentage. So like, who's drawing up easy catches? Kyle Shanahan. His quarterbacks are basically always in the top 10 when it comes to expected completion percentage. So it doesn't really matter if Trey Lance is good, because Kyle Shanahan draws up just such good plays that gets the ball in the hand of his playmakers. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, also another quarterback it's really fun to make fun of Jimmy Garoppolo, because his ADOT is pathetic. And yet, what was he, like number 2 in yards per attempt? Because the guys around him just elevated him up to the top. Like, put those guys together with someone who's willing to bomb the ball down the field. Trey Lance in his small sample into like an incredible average depth of target. Add in a rushing baseline, and Trey Lance to me is just, I think he's going to be fantastic. I'm not calling for like a Lamar Jackson MVP #1 overall season, but I think that he's easily a top 10 quarterback, and he's going to give you multiple weeks where he wins you the entire week by himself.
Wow. All right. I can get behind that. I wish he wasn't so pricey. I hate that he's now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But again, home leagues. Think about your home leagues.
There you go. Yes, for sure. In the redraft home leagues, people will not. They'll probably be avoiding him. He probably will drop actually pretty far. Let's move to backfield. You know, it's Kyle Shanahan, as you mentioned. He is tough to read. We've got Elijah Mitchell. Mostert is gone, so at least there's one name that we can kind of cross off that list of every year. Like, oh crap, here we go again with freaking Mostert. but listen, there's still a bunch of other names. We've got the rookie Tyrion Davis-Price. We have Jeff Wilson. We have, who else is there that I'm forgetting?
Trey Sermon.
Yeah. Yeah, that too.
Last year's third round pick.
Yeah, that was yes. And you look, as we've all joked around, it'll probably be Trey Sermon this year to be the guy, and no one will have drafted him. Elijah Mitchell is right now RB22, and he's a 6th rounder, right in that dead zone. You know, he's near Dobbins and Dillon and Jacobs. I mean, I don't hate him there, depending on my build. It's a little scary. You know, you had the injury last year, and then you also have Kyle Shanahan. I'll go to you, Brandon, since we didn't talk about Trey Lance. Are you in on Elijah Mitchell?
So I'll have a lot of Elijah Mitchell in DFS this year. Like, when he's playing and active, I'm going to use him. I'm going to be very excited about him. I'm concerned about the injury history. I'm concerned about timeshares. I'm concerned about all that stuff. And where he's going in drafts, I'm grabbing Josh Jacobs. I'm grabbing A.J. Dillon. I'm grabbing Miles Sanders. Like, those are the guys that I'm probably more likely to bank on. I'm just worried about the injuries and worried about Shanahan. I'm much more likely to take a late round dart at Tyrion Davis-Price and kind of hope that maybe he earns a role in that backfield. But yeah, I like him. I like the talent, like what he did when he was on the field. I'll use him a lot for one game, but for a full season, it's just a little bit too expensive for me right now.
Mike, are you same boat, different boat?
I'm more aligned with you, Jen, that I think he's very interesting. Yes, technically a dead zone running back, but when he was on the field last year, he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ridiculous, but I'll say it, because I'll say ridiculous things. The thing that scares me the most about Elijah Mitchell is how in on him the San Francisco beat reporters are right now. Everything coming out of camp is Elijah Mitchell is the greatest, because those people over in San Francisco have led us astray so many times. You know who was the greatest player of camp last year? Brandon Ayuk, the guy who got freaking benched for like half the season.
And now he's experiencing a huge resurgence as of today. I think today was Ayuk Day on Twitter, and I'm just like, well, maybe that was...
And so just like we talk about this on the Footballers a lot, is like the San Francisco beat reporters are just so, and not just like wrong, like telling you to turn left at a junction and then laughing because the correct answer was you needed to turn right, and they're like, oh, hilarious. So like that, it shouldn't matter. It should not matter. I'm saying this out loud, but it still freaks me out how much they are in on him. Having said that, in the 5th round, like Elijah Mitchell, even if no running back plays the whole season, if you get 14 games out of Elijah Mitchell in the 5th round, I think you're happy with the ADP.
I can dig it. All right, let's go to wide out, or let's go to wide receivers, I guess, pass catchers, whatever. We mentioned Ayuk briefly. He's, I don't know, experiencing some sort of surge in the last day. Maybe he's out of the out of the doghouse. Maybe, I don't know.
Late 6th, early 7th now it'll cost you.
Well, I mean, listen, Debo is expensive. We know that. I like Debo. I'm good with it. I don't hate him, so I've been buying him. Ayuk, I can honestly say I don't think that I've drafted him very much this season, and I don't know that I'm going to be in on this new this hype. Especially Mike, you just talked me into definitely not listening to anything there. So there's that, and then we have Kittle, of course. I mean, we've talked a lot on this show, Brandon and I at least, about Kittle, and that. My thing with Kittle, I like him. He scares the crap out of me the way he plays on the field. He plays to get hurt every single play he's out there. And you think he's going to get hurt every play he's out there, and he does get hurt. So, but there is a dip. I mean, this season he is after Waller, I believe. I think he's tight end 5. And so he's somewhat affordable if you want to pay up for tight end. Brandon, how are you feeling about Kittle? I don't think we've talked about him this season, or maybe we have. I don't know.
So I'm worried about the injury history, and just because he plays with his hair on fire, like he's just bound to get nicked up. Just
a lot of hair.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of hair.
Big fire.
Also like top 5 fun guy in the NFL. Like if I could hang out with anybody in the NFL, George Kittle would be high on that list, especially if I was 15 years younger with no kids. But I like Kittle a little bit. If I'm not building a San Francisco stack, though, I'm probably just not targeting tight end where I need to get Kittle. But I've been having fun lately doing a Kittle and Lance back-to-back in rounds 4 and 5. And sometimes I'll grab Ayuk in 6 as well. I've been having fun doing that occasionally just because I do think Lance is one of the last players in that tier of quarterbacks who has a QB1 range of outcomes. Obviously, I'm not predicting he gets there, but I think that his upside and ceiling is as high as anyone being drafted in that range. So I do like kind of sprinkling that in and having a little bit there. But in general, if I'm paying up for tight end, I'm going to really pay up for tight end, and I'm going to already have one before Kittle, or I'm just going to wait. It's not usually the part of the draft where I'm targeting that position.
Yep, I'm in agreement here.
You are. All right. Is there anything else for the San Francisco that we need to talk about? I think we kind of covered everybody.
I mean, just to the beat reporters of like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, help us out. Please.
Get it together. I can't go to their practices. It's your job. No. You're paid to do that. Come on.
Do we even want to talk about Seattle? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, is there anything to even talk about there? Brandon,
I do want to say the DK Metcalf, like I've never been confused with a DK Metcalf believer. Like I was down on him going into the draft. He's been much better than I ever thought he would be. Each year, I think he's a little bit overblown. But now he's like a late 4th round pick. And like he'll sometimes slide into the 5th round. He was pretty good with Geno Smith. And Drew Lock was productive with Cortland Sutton. I don't necessarily think that we need great quarterback play for DK Metcalf to produce at his depressed ADP. Mike, am I crazy for still believing in DK Metcalf despite Russell Wilson being gone?
I mean, you're crazy if you think if Drew Lock is a starting quarterback that there's a hope for DK Metcalf. So, I mean, like, all DK Metcalf truthers, you better be lighting your candles and doing your seances that it's going to be Geno Smith, because you're right. Like, when Geno was at the helm, DK Metcalf was still okay. Him and Lockett it's so unbelievably difficult to gauge those guys because they're proven. When it comes to wide receiver, you like to bet on talent. but man, it's like like a low pass volume. Not like your quarterback is going to be someone who should not be a starting quarterback because Pete Carroll thinks that he is like omnipotent and that the Seahawks are going to be good without a great starting quarterback. So it's so difficult because they're like DK Metcalf, both of those guys. They're incredibly good wide receivers, but the quarterbacks are so bad, and you have a run-heavy offense. So like when it comes down to it, honestly, like I haven't been able to. I talk about on the Footballers a lot of like part of fantasy football for me is a player that I'm just willing to be wrong. And DK Metcalf is one of those guys for me. If he comes out and he's incredible, there will be no remorse, no like, oh, I totally knew it. It's just like if he's fantastic, good. I'm real happy for the guy. I'm happy for everyone who drafted him. It's just not going to be me.
Yeah, my personal take. I know you didn't ask me, but I'm gonna tell you anyway.
I always want to know, Jen.
I knew you were coming here next, so I just decided to jump the gun. You know, we all overuse the term like he's better in best ball, but like both of those guys, for me mentally, like I could take them in best ball, but having to like sit down and wrestle with, do I start these guys every week? It would kill me. Like I can't have Tyler Lockett on a team and watch me decide to start him and him do nothing, and then the next week be like, oh fuck it, I'm not starting him, and then all of a sudden he's 3 touchdowns in. I can't do it to myself because I've been there, I've done it, and yeah. I've actually, this is the first year. So Scott Fishbowl, we're in year 12 or whatever. I have had Tyler Lockett. I think my first year was year 6 or something. I don't know. I've had Tyler Lockett every single season.
Ooh, humble brag over there, Jen. Take it easy.
Yeah, well, you know. No, it's just I'm old and I've been around a lot in the industry. But no, I've had Tyler Lockett every single year, and this year I purposely was like, I cannot do it anymore. I cannot fight through that weekly thing of, do I start this guy and is he going to kill me this week? So that's my thing. In best ball, I'll pull the trigger a couple times just to have them there in case they randomly have that spike week and I don't have to pay attention to it or know if it's happening.
I think that's fair, honestly. I will say Tyler Lockett is probably one of my top 5 favorite players in the league. I think once a year he makes a catch that I literally drop my jaw. Like it just cracks me up. He's phenomenal, but it's definitely concerning. Definitely better in baseball. I really like I said, I'm looking at DK because last year I was like second round. No, I'm not interested. But now like I don't know. I've got him in the 5th, and I'm kind of interested. But we'll see. The only other. I guess we'll talk Noah Fant, and then I want to get to the running backs. But Noah Fant.
No.
No Noah Fant. I'm just curious. Noah Fant, is he a late round tight end target? No,
nope.
Not at all.
Not for me. I know Andy over in the Footballers. He's in. He thinks he's at least interesting for me. I can't give any farts for Noah Fant in redraft.
Nope, zero farts.
Zero. There are like nothing I could eat that will muster up any farts.
Can this be the new rating system for players? Can we have like a gas like meter, and it's zero
index.
farts? Gas ranks a 7 on the gas index, which is right around Chipotle. I love it. I love this so much.
I'm freaked out for DK Metcalf and Lockett. Like I'm not worried about that tight end. Goodness gracious.
I love it. I don't know if we could build on that. I think that's a perfect Noah Fant take.
There you go.
Jen, I'm going to start with you with the running backs. Okay, we know. I'm not going to pretend like Rashad Penny isn't the RB1 going in. He is, and I'm not someone who hates Rashad Penny, but he's only played in 43% of his potential games since entering the league. The guy has a hard time staying on the field, and they just spent a second-round running back pick on a very talented running back. Both those guys cost you middle-round picks toward the end of the running back dead zone. Which one, if any, are you targeting, Jen?
Well, first of all, I'd like to have an in memoriam of Chris Carson because you know how I feel about Chris Carson.
Dude,
this is a Chris Carson friendly podcast. Yeah, we love Chris Carson.
I'm very, very upset. I actually drafted him like in March, a couple times just to be like, yeah, maybe he'll come back.
I might still draft him just for fun.
Right. Well, yeah. So, listen, I've kind of been spreading it out. In redraft, I'm not sure. I think it maybe depends on the format, right? A PPR, you go more towards the penny, and then Walker, you go more towards the standard. I don't really play in standard, but have PPR, whatever. I think, it comes down to it is a Pete Carroll offense, right? So I think either one is fine because they're going to run heavy, run often, run always. I think they're both going to be fine. I think if Penny gets hurt, Walker will be fine. If Penny doesn't get hurt, I think Walker will still get his share. It's interesting that they're going around the same ADP. I think that's kind of an interesting thing. But I'm down with either one because I think in that offense, you really can't go wrong with anybody that runs a ball. I mean, I'll take Travis Homer. I'll take DJ Dallas. I don't even know if he's still there. But, in that offense, you never know. So.
How about you, Mike? Are you targeting either one of those running backs, and which one do you prefer?
So for the offseason, it's been Rashad Penny of people getting overexcited about the second round draft pick and like drafting him multiple rounds ahead of Rashad Penny, who was the starter. I mean, I can't argue with the numbers of the guy, whatever Brandon you said of like the amount of games he's actually played.
Yeah.
But then you can give the stat of, well, in the games that he's played and he's received meaningful touches, like in every single one of those games, he dominates. Like him and Sony Michel, that dynasty team I mentioned to you, Rashad Penny and Sony Michel, just the ghosts of Christmas past, just saved our dynasty team and took me to a championship. It was fantastic. Like he's very, very good. He is the running back that they hoped they were getting with the first round pick. Now, having said that, if you want to dive into like the studies, like I did I went back and did a deep dive because my cape was 7 stories long for Javonte Williams last year of why he is just the pick over Melvin Gordon, but did like an actual dive of second round rookies versus the incumbent, and it was the second round rookie. They're the one at the end of the year that you would have wanted over the majority, over 50% of the time. So I can't remember the number. I apologize off the top of my head, but it was like 60+% of the time the rookie was better.
Interesting.
I mean, injuries and stuff factor in. So honestly, because of that, you probably want Walker just sitting on the back of your bench getting ready. But the team, knowing Peach Carroll, or Peach we call him Peach Cobbler on the show. So that one slipped out.
Peach Carroll, yeah.
So Pete Carroll, like he's gonna go with Penny at the beginning of the year. Can he stay healthy? I don't know. I'd bet against it. So I'm into both. I think both are very interesting for their ADPs. But if everything goes right, it's gonna be Rashad Penny.
In redraft, Mike, would you draft both? They both cost a lot of money. Would you draft both?
No, do not do that to yourself. Do not do that to yourself because you are going to be sad. Yes,
Pain.
yes.
Pain every week. I like it. Okay, well, we've run long, which is okay, and it's been fun. I will mercifully let Mike get on to his evening. Thank you, Mike and Jen. Always a pleasure. Mike, do you have any last thoughts or plugs you want to say before we go?
Nah, man, just follow me on the socials at FFHitman, Twitter, Instagram. I've been trying to get cool with the young kids. I'm trying to get the TikTok flowing. So if you're of that age, follow me over there as well.
Excellent. Or if you're old and you like TikTok too, definitely still follow Mike.
No, don't. If you're old, just delete it.
If you're old, go away. Go away.
We don't belong over there.
We don't.
It's a young
Check out
person's
Mike.
Game.
Check out Mike everywhere you can find him. Also at the Fantasy Footballers, hear him on the Fantasy Footballers podcast. It's excellent. Listeners, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, as Mike said, at FF Hitman, at the Monday Mommy, and at Two Guys Brandon. Thanks so much for checking us out, and have a good day.